Hi there, I'm Callum White and welcome to another episode of Real Estate in Real Life. I'm very excited this time to be sitting down with one of our highest performing associate directors in the business, David John, or as I know him, DJ. It's just a very exciting time and you're going to get a lot of knowledge from this episode, so stick around. David John, thanks so much for being here. How are you?
Thanks for having me, Cal.
No problem. I guess the first question, and I ask everyone the same thing, is, who was David John growing up? And what does growing up look like for you?
Who was David John growing up? David John growing up, part of a family of three siblings. I'm the oldest. Pretty normal, relatively normal life. Went to normal school from Southwest London. Went to sixth form, went to university, did a degree that has no relevance to what I'm doing now.
What was that degree?
Business management.
Okay.
And yeah, that's pretty much my lifespan in terms of what I did professionally,
Yeah.
or education-wise.
And what was that job in the UK that you would have done before you moved out here?
So prior to coming doing real estate here, I did real estate in London.
Okay.
Was there for 6 years in the area that I'm from, or near there anyway, in Southwest London, an area called Balham and Wandsworth Common. And then, yeah, fast forward another 6 years, here I am in Dubai and sat here today.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. So obviously that's a little bit about David John in the background. What made you want to move to Dubai?
So going back to my real estate career, I progressed through the ranks there as like a junior negotiator, senior, then branch manager. But I started to feel like I was hitting a bit of a ceiling.
Yeah.
A common topic that everyone talks about in Dubai these days are the taxes. And I felt I reached the ceiling professionally as well as financially, just because of the realms of how the tax bracket would go and so on and so forth. Dubai was always on the radar for me. Had been coming to Dubai as a child on family trips.
Oh, okay.
So we always had a bit of an appetite for the area or the place. Completely different landscape to what it is now. But yeah, a family member of mine said, why don't you go and test out real estate there?
Yeah.
And I came here on a solo trip for a holiday with the intention to speak to a few agencies, have a few interviews, got offered a role and said, okay, I'm going to take it.
The rest is history.
The rest is history.
Yeah, brilliant. And see, that's interesting. The branch manager role, you'd kind of look at that as being like very successful in the UK, but the tax and, it does take a big toll on obviously people's earnings. Something I quite firmly believe in is that, in the UK or in lots of places, you do better, you earn more, and then they take more.
Yeah.
Whereas really they should kind of give you a perk for doing more and contributing more.
Yeah.
But that's very interesting, DJ. Thanks. So David John, you moved, or DJ, sorry, I'm not used to calling you David John. DJ, you moved over to Dubai, and what did those first 6 months to a year look like? Because I think it's really important. It's not all rainbows and sunshine, is it? So what did those first 6 months look like?
Yeah, it's definitely not rainbows and sunshine, although it can be at times. But the first 6 months for me, interestingly, I moved here just before COVID kicked off. So that was July 2019, August 2019. So I tried to hit the ground running, and then we put everything on pause. I don't know if you remember the
lockdown.
I mean, it was pretty intense compared to most cities in the world, but beneficial in the long run.
Absolutely.
And in hindsight, I think it was the best thing that happened, to be honest,
off.
for this place. Well, yeah. But yeah, so in that first 6 months to a year, it was, first of all, real estate here compared to back home, and me coming into this country having the impression that, it'll be a walk in the park. I did this for 6 years. I ran a branch. I trained people, sold houses, whatever. Thought, yeah, I'll just hit the ground running. Completely different.
Yeah.
Sales skills, it's the same thing wherever you go in the world, but the processes, the cultures that you deal with, the different types of people you meet, everything here was completely different. So I had to mentally take myself back to a place of
the basics.
The basics. What you thought you knew or what you thought you were is not the case here. So you've got to kind of reinvent your real estate self here now. So yeah, that first 6 months throwing COVID into the mix was challenging because it was, you're getting grips to do with your area that you're learning about processes, trial and error, what works, what doesn't in terms of, at that time I was doing leasing.
Yep.
So it's about understanding all of those components and what goes on with the processes. And then of course COVID hit, so everything got put on hold for a bit. We were trying to do deals
I remember.
being
We
in.
weren't allowed to do viewings, and you'd have to sneak out to try and do a viewing and stuff.
Yeah,
It
so
was
like
crazy.
it was crazy. Or you were trying to do like virtual viewings, which
Yeah.
now there's a lot of these days.
Yeah.
But back then it wasn't
I think.
a thing. Like you had to be in person. So that was challenging. I know a lot of people that were with me at the same time. You know, some people are still here, thriving. There's others that sort of derailed them a bit, and they're not here now.
Yeah, and it's not their fault. You know, it's a tough
Yeah.
thing to go through that, and it's a shame because if they'd have managed to hold on, they probably could have done some good stuff. But it's just it was the whole world was crazy during the COVID time. So for anyone that doesn't know about what happened in Dubai during COVID, they literally put people on lockdown. So we were only allowed to leave our house for. I think it was for a few hours every 3 days.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, 3
and
days.
Every 3 days, you're allowed to go out to get medicine, or you're allowed to go out and get supermarket groceries, all that sort of stuff. Which is it was a big difference to the rest of the world, where you've got places where they're like, I'm not wearing a mask, I've got asthma. Whereas over here, it was like if you didn't wear a mask, it was a £400 fine.
Yeah.
2,000 dirham. I remember it, and I was just like, this is how things I think should be. But at the end of the day, Dubai got out of it very cleanly. So the start was a bit rocky, but at the same time, you made it work. What's changed from your, initial steps coming into Dubai real estate to where you are now? What's the biggest differences that you feel in yourself or also in the market?
So the market's obviously changed massively. Again, context of COVID, post-COVID, I felt, working in that market that it sort of just, there was a big bounce back with the Dubai market.
Yeah.
Post-lockdown and everything like that. I think that played an advantage to how busy we became.
Yeah.
And how many people started buying and investing at the time. Probably not the same level as what it is now, but for me, it feels like that
It was the
constantly
start of the
increased.
trajectory.
Correct. So yeah, in terms of how it felt now versus then, I think if I was to, the job doesn't, throughout both phases, the job's not easy either way you look at it, but it gets easier
Yeah.
the longer that you do it.
100%, yeah.
You need skin in the game. And the longer you go through situations, or you learn through them, or you work through them, and you learn how to navigate yourself through them. Like I said, the job's never easy. It doesn't change whether you're a 10-year associate director or a 1-year, new to the market broker. It's just it gets easier just based on time.
I think breaking down that, it's essentially the job doesn't get easier, you just get better at dealing with it.
Correct.
You know what I mean? It's like it's not as if there's someone in Dubai who just everything for them they walk on water. No, they just have done it so many times. The experience is there, which is really interesting. And yeah, David John, obviously you're a testament to that, because I'm sure you find things a lot easier than you did in the beginning because you've now got that experience. And something you mentioned in the last question I asked you was about all the different cultures we deal with.
Yeah.
And I was an estate agent in the UK as well, and we don't really deal with that many different cultures because most of the time we just speak to a solicitor.
Yeah.
And they're probably going to be English or Scottish in my example. Whereas over here we deal with, over your career in Dubai, you've probably dealt with 150 odd different nationalities.
Yeah.
Just when it comes down to people doing viewings, when it comes down to people giving you offers, when it comes down to landlords, sellers, buyers and tenants. So, there's a lot to learn there, which we're not really ever taught anywhere in the world. Sales skills, yes. But then again, when it comes down to, a bartering culture, where there's still places in the world where it becomes they think they can negotiate every single thing.
Yeah.
And they try and do that with us. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting, but some good insights for the audience.
Yeah, no problem.
So DJ, you've been doing this a long time. You're one of our top performers, and when I say that, I mean like you're making a hell of a lot of money. What is a tip that you could give to people who are in the market right now, or who are looking to enter the market? Your choice. But what's a tip that you either apply in your business or something that you've seen work for you?
So one thing I'd say is that we're taught to, as salespeople, to manage expectations very well. Whether it's the seller side, the buyer side, tenant, landlord, whichever one. But I found the bigger responsibility or job that you should take on, or try to at least get better at, is managing your own emotions. Because this job is, I'm not trying to make it unattractive to the audience or anyone that's thinking about it, because it's an amazing industry to work in, but it is a roller coaster. It is full of ups and downs. And again, going back to what I said before, no matter how experienced you are, you will always be faced with some sort of objection, hurdle, or some sort of confrontation that you've got to overcome. And if you don't manage or learn how to manage your emotions correctly in those situations, what you don't realize is as a byproduct of not managing your emotions is how you deal with that client, how you deal with the seller, how you deal with the buyer. And if you... It's hard because as a human, you're emotionally driven, right? But at the same time, if you act out of emotion sometimes, like to put an example out there, if either side of the transaction has frustrated you, and that's showing in the way you communicate, the way you talk, what you say, all your, if you're in person, your non-verbal body language or whatever, that can have a detrimental effect on whether you see that sale or lease to the finish line.
Yeah.
And I think if I had a biggest tip is to focus on that, because you're only in control of yourself.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you can never really control someone's decision to some degree.
Oh, you can influence it, but at the same time, it's like you got to focus on what you can control.
Precisely. So I think for me, that would be my biggest tip.
Yeah.
Because your emotional tolerance or tenacity will be tested.
So were you always good at that, or how long did it take, or what did you do to get better at it?
So I've learned through trial and error and mistakes. So I've had situations, especially towards the beginning of the career, where something hasn't gone my way, and I've acted out of emotion, maybe frustration or disappointment or something, and that is shown to the client in whatever side of the transaction they're on, and to put an example out there, or I've dealt with situations where we were so close to a deal. You know how it goes. You could be working on something for a month.
Yep.
You think Thursday is
Locked
D-Day, it's locked in, and at the 11th hour, the solicitor says, actually, this can't happen, or the client's advisor or legal advisor says this can't happen, and then your sort of frustration towards things, or your disappointment even, can maybe come out and be like, oh, well, you walk away from the situation, oh, I'm never going to deal with this person ever again, blah, blah, blah. But, that's happened to me. And the same situation's repeated itself. And I've learned from it in the sense of remain calm, remain cool, take a step back, but also understand what the client's saying. And they change their mind.
I think there's definitely something there as well, DJ, that across the highest performers in our business, listen, some of you guys might be a bit fiery, or like I like to call it, passionate.
Yeah.
But you can be passionate in the office, and when you're having a little meltdown, or even when things are going good, be happy about that. But when it comes to the client, you're cool, calm, collected, and everything's logical, and it all makes sense for them. So definitely something that's definitely a pattern you see across top performers probably everywhere. And even if you think about the highest, like football players, you know what I mean? They're not on the pitch angry or sad or whatever. They have to put their emotions to the side and focus on what they do, which is really interesting. So Deej, that was what you think is a tip for brokers.
Yeah.
What's something that you're seeing in the market right now that you think brokers should stop doing or keep an eye on, or something that you think you're just not you're not enjoying seeing in the market?
One thing I'd say is, as the market's become more buoyant, there's a lot more brokers coming to the market. There's a lot more buyers, sellers, and I understand it's a great profession to try and push towards, but with that happening and it becoming more saturated, I'm finding, especially on social media, the type of content that is going out there, and this is just my personal opinion.
Yeah, of course.
I feel like there's not enough value being given, and I do think that there's a lot of, you could call it positioned kind of content putting out there to benefit that agent's or own narrative. And I understand it to a degree, but I also think as agents,
we have a duty.
Yeah, we have a duty of care to, well, anyone in this market. Dubai is built off, tourism and real estate. It's a big thing here. So effectively, if one person starts putting something out, then it's the Jones theory. Everyone starts copying, and sort of stuff. Before you know it, you're in a market full of like informative information that doesn't actually help anything or help people. And
we're not providing value to people.
There's no value. Yeah. Like, that's the thing that I have a pet peeve with, because, like I said, it's duty.
And this is the thing, and next thing you know, you're dealing with a buyer who's sitting saying to you, but I've seen this video, and there's nothing that's backing up that video. Yeah. And one thing I think we can both agree on, we both agree social media is a great tool.
Yeah. 100%.
And we both agree agents should be using it, and there's a reason you're sitting down and doing this with me today. But it's just making sure that, we're doing right by Dubai, we're doing right by the market, we're doing right by the companies we work for, and doing right by the other agents that have to then either clean up your mess or correct the mistakes that you're making on these posts. Which these things happen, and not everyone's perfect, but there's definitely, like you just said there, the Jones theory is like very quickly, like someone says something, and then suddenly there's 10 other videos from 10 other agents all saying the exact same thing, and I'm like, That doesn't even make any sense. But yeah, DJ, that's a very, very interesting view on it. Thank you. So DJ, you've been doing this a long time now. Ups and downs. What's been your best day as an agent?
It's quite a few, you know. I'd say the best though, to put an exact memory to place, would be probably that time. I think it was circa 2 years ago. And look, being a broker, you know, my goal is to sell as much as I can or put as much commission on the board as possible. And I remember I think, was it 2 years ago possibly? I did a bulk deal. It put something circa
18 units.
Yeah, 22 to be
That's
exact. Yeah. But yeah, that was probably my most triumphant day in real estate. Just obviously, one, it was a big deal. Two, to get to that stage, there was a lot of to and froing. There was weeks, if not possibly just over a month worth of negotiations. There was many twists and turns. Times when I thought the deal was off. Sometimes when I thought, yes, it's happening, and everything in between. Going back to the first question, the roller coaster.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was probably the best one, just because of what it took to get there.
No, funny thing is we have a sales board in our office where it goes off every time someone does a deal, and I remember the day that went on, because it was just it's always exciting when we see anyone doing these massive deals, but it was definitely a day that I'm sure you'll remember. I'm sorry it was 22 units, not 18, but the point was the point was, I'm just like, it was a brilliant feeling, and I think all agents should be proud of their accomplishments. And you know, it's very tough in Dubai because we don't want to talk about money, we don't talk about how well we're doing, because in the UK you're not brought up to do that, and we're brought up to, like, if you're doing well, just be quiet because you don't want to tell people. But over here, like, we want to celebrate it. So that was a brilliant deal, or brilliant month that was for you. Coming on the other side then, that's a good day. What's the worst day you've had in real estate in Dubai? Or the worst day in Dubai, whatever it could be.
Worst day. I mean, there's been many of those too. What would I put down as the worst? Probably, there was one time I was working on a deal that, again, it was quite a sizable deal, and naturally as a broker you think, okay, like, you know,
what's quite sizable?
Well, modestly speaking, to me, sizable is anything 500 plus.
Okay.
In terms of commission on the board.
No problem.
But yeah, I was, again, going through that yo-yo process, and that deal fell apart, in short. The reason it fell apart, without going into it, I thought was it didn't make sense, but these things happen. But there was a lot riding on that deal in terms of the ripple effect to come after. And I guess I did the same thing that most agents do. Again, no matter how experienced you are, you start counting your counting your chickens before they hatch. And thinking about everything that could come off the back of it. And I don't
I'm gonna buy this, and I'm gonna
not even just that stuff, but more about where that was meant to take us with the client in terms of business. Because there was meant to be some repeat business that came off the back of it. And yeah, it just didn't happen. But like I said, there's been many days that, you know, would feel like the worst day, but to put an example out there, that would be
a bad one that you remember. Yeah, and the thing is, I was in with the new starters, what day is it? Yeah, yesterday, and the guys that have just joined the business, and I was telling them, I was saying, like, guys, over your career of whether it's 6 years, 10 years, 8 years in Dubai, you will have so many times when you think you're going to make at least £100,000 in a day. Like, it's going to be like, you're literally like, oh, I'm about to make £100,000 today, and it's going to get snatched away from you, and then snatched away from you, and then snatched away from you, and not even £100,000. It might be £25,000. It might be 50. It's still a lot of money. Absolutely, we've not lost the value of money, but it's just like it happens so often that you need to have a thick skin for it. Which, you know, I try to tell these guys this straight away, because suddenly they start and they think the amount of times that you think you're so close, and it's happened to me, it's happened to everyone. Brings me on my next question then, DJ. What's your why? You know, you're making a lot of money. I'll speak for you. Things are going well. What gets you up every single day to come into that office and keep cracking on, keep getting on with what you're doing, and, you know, positioning yourself as one of the best brokers in the market? What keeps you going?
Interesting question. Some days I ask myself that, to be honest. I think ultimately it's this industry, especially here, and the structure of how real estate works here, you can earn life-changing money. And I don't mean that as just a loose saying. Like, we're talking about £100,000, 25,000, 50,000. It's a lot of money in, you know, the grand scheme of things, especially when you're comparing maybe to places like the UK.
Yep.
Being that that's tax-free, but also the amount of money that you can earn more
Yeah.
as well. And it's not just about the money that you get with it, it's about what you can do with it. So how I'm geared as a person is like, and I have been from a young age, is, you know, develop yourself, grow yourself, succeed in what you want to do. I like to think I'm quite ambitious. But ultimately the goal is to live life on your own terms, or freedom. I've got a thing or a little knack for, I don't want to be controlled by my job. I think I've seen it with family, friends growing up, where if suddenly the company goes in liquidation or redundancy or whatever, that tap that you're so reliant on goes. And the potential to earn more, to give yourself freedom or sustainability if things go wrong, is not there. But this job, on the other hand, if you apply yourself, you know, and you ride the wave with it, you can.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you can, when they say life-changing money, you literally can. In one shape, way, or more. Like,
So I guess for you, it's freedom, essentially.
Ultimately.
Freedom and time.
yeah, and there's other things like, you know, where I come from, maybe in the UK, and I'm not giving a sob story on that, but sometimes you wouldn't believe or think that you had the potential to earn X amount of money. You know, £100,000 to me growing up, I thought that that was doctors that you had to go and do a PhD for and study for 8 years and that sort of stuff. But, you know, not to put it out there, Cal, but you know as much as I do that there are people in our company that are more than surgeons, doctors, pilots. And these people are saving people's lives, or have got lives in their hands, right?
I say it to you guys, I tell you, I've said it before, it's insane the responsibility that some people have that aren't paid as well as some of you guys in there. And it's not even, it's not, they don't earn as well, because I hate to say paid as well, because it's, you know, it's not salaried, but what you guys do, it's so interesting. I think that something that really, at White & Co, because you've got the associate director title, which has been earned via your billables, see that whole idea of like the freedom, the time, like you don't need to be at the office. You can do whatever you want, which you've earned. Like you could literally spend the next year not even in the office, and I wouldn't have a word to say about it. But even then, you still come into the office. You still put figures on the board. You didn't just turn around and go, "Oh, I've had a good 3 years, 2 years. I'm going to just take a year off." And that's the difference between, you know, I think a lot of people here are seeing like make hay while the sun's shining, and then 10 years in this game, you could be retired. And then guess what? 40 years old, you're away retired, and then you don't need to work to 65, 70 like most places in the world.
Yeah.
A lot of people keep talking about work-life balance. Forget work-life balance when you're 30 to 35 and all that. Just have life.
Yeah.
Because if you get to retire, you just get life. You don't need balance. There'll be no working.
Literally that.
So it's really interesting that, David John. Thank you so much.
That's probably the best way I'd put it.
Yeah.
And when I talk about freedom.
So DJ, we're friends as well, but you know, I didn't know you on the first day you started at the business. We just had met, and things are obviously been great since then. But now being at White & Co for a good amount of time, and you know, one of our top performers, you could go anywhere in the market. You could do anything you want. Anyone would be lucky to have you in their business. You're an impeccable employee, and one of our directors, just amazing guy. What keeps you at White & Co?
So Cal, you know, I'm not just saying this for the sake of us being on a podcast and you sat in front of me, but from day one, when we first interviewed, to how many years have I been in now? 3.5? Every single thing that we've ever spoke about, or every single thing that you said you would do, you've always delivered on. To give some context to the audience, and I'm not putting names out there, I've worked at 2 other companies in Dubai. Good companies, and I've got nothing bad to say about them. But, you know, how I've felt here, I've never felt or thought that I don't get the support that I need, or equally in my case, maybe the flexibility that I need. Just, you know, anytime there's something gone great, we celebrate it together as a company. If something goes wrong, you know, whether it be yourself, Neil, or other management teams that I've ever dealt with along the journey, they've always put an arm around me. I've had moments, albeit yes, I'm a good performer. I've had moments when, you know, I'm breaking down with Neil, and, you know, he's given me a bit of a short dose of a life coach session, and then we get back to it, and then, you know, that's what Uncle Neil does, right?
So, that's what Uncle Neil does.
But I do also believe, you know, Neil deserves credit, but all this stuff stems from, you know, yourself and what you've built as a company, and I think it shows in all elements of the business. So in short, to answer your question, that's why I came to White & Co, and why I've stayed at White & Co. Everything that you say in terms of reinvesting in terms of the business, well, I feel like I've witnessed the whole thing.
Yeah.
For whether it be the office renovation, the size of the company, the departments you've opened, the teams that you've built,
Mm.
and everything else in between. So, yeah, in short, like, I just can't. I've got nothing to complain about, really.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I'll pay the man. Give him his money.
Yeah,
No, I appreciate that, and obviously that's something that there's nothing worse than saying you're going to do something and not do it. I mean, it's the least thing that we can do as an owner of a business is say I'm going to do this and then follow through. So I hope I've never let you down on that. It doesn't seem like I have.
yeah.
DJ, you've made some money. Things are good. How are you bettering yourself personally? Not just talking about just doing deals. What else is going on in your life? How are you bettering yourself?
Try my best to. I live by a saying where it's how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Mm-hmm.
I try to apply that to most things. So I try and take health quite seriously in terms of going to the gym and trying to diet. But in a place like Dubai, it can be a bit tricky at
Believe
times.
me, I feel you.
um, and those sugar cravings kick in, as well as like the array of the restaurants that they have. But that's another topic. But yeah, whether it be health, I think the mental is quite a key thing. This job can be draining, as well as rewarding. But I think just to give you that sort of mental edge, it's good to like I've personally, and this is self-invested in things like life
Mm-hmm.
coaches. Um, you know, we had the performance coach that you put
Yeah,
in
yeah.
place for us. I got a lot from that sort of situation. Whilst that was you doing it for us, I still took a lot.
Yeah, but
a
then
lot
what
from
he
it.
what he gives you, and then you take from it, you
And
then put it into your
apply.
business. It all comes back. It all
Yeah.
comes back.
So there was all of that sort of stuff. And yeah, just that that sort of stuff. I try to also expand my network in a way. I think not just because of this person might you know do more deals with you or whatever, but I feel like putting some investment into how you build other relationships, whether it be clients or people that maybe aren't in the industry,
Yeah.
because you can learn a lot from them. Um, and that's how I feel like you can expand yourself in more than one way. It's
Absolutely.
not just always, like you said, real estate deals. There's other things in the world that equally affect real estate, but it's good to have some context on, whether that be macroeconomics, financial side of things, crypto, different things that all tie in with what we do. So they'll be in mutual interest
Yeah.
to some degree. But yeah, I'd say that was something else that
Good to see you're still learning. Good to see you're still improving.
yeah.
So DJ, I've actually just been in the UK, and again, it's a bit tough when I'm there because you kind of have to try and like dilute everything down because you don't want to seem like you're,
Yeah.
you don't want to tell people you're doing well. We've got a sales board in our office, so every single person in our office can see exactly how much you make. You can see exactly how much every other person makes. The audience and the people who are watching this who want to know about David John, they want to know about Dubai, they want to know about real estate, they don't know. What has been the kind of figures that you would take home in your best ever month in Dubai, or what kind of figures go on the board?
Fortunately, there's been a few months that have been, or quite a few months in my time at Wineco that have been great. There's one particular month, I can't exactly remember when, but it was a month where I don't know if you probably, of course, you remember this one, but there was like a battle for the top 5, I think, or the top 3 because of the incentives and everything else. And, to put it into perspective, there was between the 3 of us, one of us was at 1.7, the other was at like 1.9. I think the other one was at like 2.1.
Yeah.
That was my best month. I think I came third out of the 3.
Yeah.
And I think I pulled out of the bag just over 1.8 million on the board.
Yeah.
Um,
So 1.8 million is about 400 grand.
yeah. But like, it's crazy that, the kind of numbers that we were competing for.
And again, it comes back to what you said at the start, going like, when I was growing up, as in when you were growing up, making 100K, only a lawyer or a doctor or someone who's been to uni, someone who has a PhD could make that kind of money. And then, we're over here doing a very important job, but earning the kind of cash like that, it's crazy, DJ. And that was, I do remember that. I feel like that was a January for some reason. I feel like it was a January. What are you doing with this money? Are you out here blasting it on Lamborghinis and Rolexes and bottles of vodka? What are we doing with it?
So look, over the years, I've probably had my fair share of, enjoying the social side of Dubai, but mainly now, especially in the last 2 years, I've developed quite a big appetite for investing. I think one thing you learn on this job through the people that you meet is like what they did to get that money.
Yeah.
And like sometimes you'll be taking them on a viewing or selling them a house, and you're like, wow, like these guys can afford these kind of things, or they can have such a massive portfolio. And you kind of learn from them.
Yeah.
Like, investing is the key. And Dubai is a place where if you let it, there's many different ways you can spend your money, and very fast for that matter. So yeah, I invest in various things. I've bought a few properties out here.
Yep.
I've done renovation and flips. I've bought and flipped off plan. I've got into crypto, which is very volatile, by the way. So you need.
This is not financial advice,
not
just so everyone knows.
advice, but yeah, crypto, whether it be other bank products, that sort of stuff. It's funny because again, based on what we're raised on or what we've been educated on, actually knowing or understanding what to do with money in the UK.
We don't understand money.
Yeah, but like again, coming out here and dealing with the people that we deal with, you can pick up and learn quite a lot from them. And yeah, that's going back to my ultimate goal for freedom, like the way
Passive income.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, brilliant. That's a fantastic answer, David. Thanks. So DJ, and I look forward to seeing this, but what do the plans look like for you in the future? Personally, professionally, whatever way you want to answer that question.
I think professionally, like you said earlier, Cal, I want to get to a place where I wouldn't say necessarily retirement, because I don't think there'd ever be a day where I wouldn't want to do something.
Yeah.
Whether that be a project of some sort or building something or challenging myself.
Yep.
But definitely I'd say future for me would be to be building things or investing in things that, maybe self-sustainable, or allow me to sort of live that more freer life, if you like, so it doesn't require me to be on top of it all the time. Personally, yeah, just, the visions of being a family man once, at some point. I'd like to be present amongst that life as well.
Yeah. That's important, that.
Yeah, I've grown up in a family life where, you don't get to spend as much time with family because we're constantly trying to, earn money.
Yeah, it's
pay
busy.
bills.
Yeah.
It's busy, and life does what life does. And for me, and I'm not saying it's the wrong way to live, but maybe spending 2 holidays a year at max, or 1 year holiday max with family time. I think there should be a lot more.
Agreed.
To life, and I'm not talking about holidays. I don't want to go on holidays all the time. I'm just saying, if for me, I'm in a position and an industry and
you want to be present.
Yeah,
and there's nothing wrong with that, mate.
But like you said, if you can, as we say, lock in for a certain period of time. So what you do today, what you do today determines what the next 5 years looks like, or the next 10 years look like. So that's sort of my generic way of looking at it.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant, mate. Finally, last question then. So someone in the audience is thinking about coming to Dubai. I don't care whether they're coming to real estate or whether they're coming here just to do something else. What would you say to them? What's your advice to them?
Without sounding biased, if you're thinking about Dubai, like, take the plunge, because I believe wholeheartedly that this city can change your life. It has a different way of operating that I feel compared to a lot of other cities in this world. It pushes you to be the best version of yourself, physically, mentally, financially. It's not that no one's ever content and no one's not present, but it does have its way of saying, okay, we've achieved this, but can we do more? Do you want to do more? You have the choice of whether you want to or not.
Yeah.
But I would say, if you're thinking about it, and you feel like you've hit a bit of a ceiling where you are, whether you're in another country or something like that, give it a go, because you'd be surprised if you apply yourself the right way, of course. So that's what I'd say someone who's thinking to come to Dubai.
Yeah.
Coming to real estate.
Yeah.
Everything that we've spoke about today,
we covered a lot of it.
Yeah, it happens. It's not just a gimmick or a one-off situation. Like a lot of lives have been changed, across the board in the industry.
Yeah. And that's the big thing to be clear on, not just at White & Co. Like, we've only been around 4.5 years. There's people that have been in this market for 20 years, 40 years, 16 years, you name it. And there's so many people whose lives have been changed at all different companies. So as much as White & Co's my baby and I love it, we're not saying just White & Co. It's in this industry, there's so many people that make it and can do really special things.
Exactly. And I think, yeah, real estate, if you apply yourself and sort of just, whoever you're working for, whether it's, doing the basics and advancing on the basics or whatever it may be, if you've got the aptitude and you've got what I would say mental tenacity and, you've got the willingness and the drive, do it.
Go for it.
Do it, for sure.
Brilliant. Well, you've heard it here from David John, or DJ as I call him. Do it. But thank you so much for tuning in, and all the best.